What's up? I'm Drew Paul Bell, and today what I want to talk about is lessons you can learn from writers. Alright, so in architecture we love to talk about the idea of interdisciplinary studies and like the cross-pollination of ideas that comes from studying other art forms. In my opinion, I think one of the best art forms to learn from is actually writers, because all artists necessarily are dealing with these abstract concepts and putting them into a particular form, whether that's music or architecture or books or writing. But see, the thing is though, is that whereas like musicians or architects might struggle to put those concepts into words, writers are actually really great about that because that's what they do, right? They put abstract concepts into words. So I think that that's a great space, a great medium to learn from, great people to learn from are in there. So with that being said, I want to share some advice given by a guy named Ryan Holliday, who has written a couple books. He's actually a pretty young guy, and I think this advice is completely money. All right, he wrote a blog post that was titled something like, "So you want to be a writer?" He said that's your first mistake. He said if you ask anybody like to give you advice on how to be a better writer, what they're going to do is they're going to tell you to like write in a journal every day, work for the school newspaper, write articles and submit them for editorials. They're going to tell you to practice your craft, right? To practice your craft. But what they're not going to tell you to do is go out and have an adventure. Go out and do something amazing. But actually that's going to be the thing that's going to help you become a better artist, right? A better writer. Because you can have the best technical abilities. You can be able to write things like beautifully, but if you don't have anything to write, no one's going to buy your books, right? You've written an instruction manual, all right? And the thing is, like, people will even put up with poor quality of writing, right? Say like sentence structure is fragmented, words are misspelled, but if you're telling a great story, people are going to be on the edge of their seats. You could do something and be like brilliantly crafted, but if it's boring, no one cares, okay? And like Huckleberry Finn is even like, look at Huckleberry Finn. That book, I mean, Mark Twain obviously knew how to write. He definitely had great writing abilities. But even like Huckleberry Finn was written in broken English, but it told such a great story that it's one of the best novels of American history. Now, so how does this relate to architecture? Architecture says something, all right? Buildings say something, they all do. Sometimes we like what they say, and sometimes we don't. What they say is sometimes a little bit less clear than the words on a page of a book, but nonetheless, as an art form, it is still saying something. And you as an architect have to know what it is that you're trying to say. If we look at something like, say, cookie cutter suburban neighborhoods, those say, we're all the same. We all want to be like each other. There's no difference between us. We're kind of like cogs in a machine and all fresh off the assembly line. So that's what those say. But what does something like a Gothic cathedral say? That speaks to the huge nature of the universe, of God, of man's like humble relationship to everything that's around us. The grand steps leading up to up to a courthouse, right? If you're walking up those grand steps and you got to go pay a parking ticket, you're going to pay the damn parking ticket. But if you walk into a county courthouse that's in like a strip mall, you're going to think you're too good to pay that, right? That doesn't, to put something in like a strip mall, it doesn't give it any sort of gravity. It doesn't elevate it in any way. The question for an architect is, what is it that you're trying to say with your buildings? Are you trying to say, I don't know, I just want to fit in? Are you trying to say, I want to stand out and be flamboyant and go against the grain just for the sake of going against the grain? Are you going to say something about transparency and privacy? About the grandness of the world or the insignificance, right? these are the kinds of questions that you have to ask yourself if you're trying to make architecture. This is the stuff that's the difference between art and just stuff. Is the difference between architecture and buildings. What are you saying, and how are you saying it? But to understand that, you have to go out and experience the world in such a way that you learn life lessons. And this is something that I think is especially important for students, because I know from just looking at myself and being and talking to first and second years when I was in like fourth and fifth year, that it became very evident that, you know, when everyone comes into college at the age of like 18, especially if they come in like 18, 19 years old, there's a lot of things you don't know about the world yet, and you got to go learn that stuff first. Like, there is a huge maturity difference between a freshman in college and somebody graduating college. You have to go through in those years very formative experiences and understand how do you view the world? How do you think it works? What do you believe? All right, these are all decisions that you have to make, and you're not going to make them by trying to just fit in and let other people tell you what to think. So I don't want to get too deep on this, because you know it can get very esoteric and ephemeral and airy-fairy, right? But my point is, right, so my tip for you though is to understand what it is you believe, what is it that you want to say with your architecture, and then figure out a way to say that. Okay, and that's going to be the difference between making buildings and making architecture. So I hope this helps you, and I'll talk to you next time.